You'll know when you have a wild woman. She'll practice her craft without boundaries. She is truly autonomous.
Her loyalty is only to the family she serves, a midwife who will not allow herself to be held back by a system she didn't create.
This podcast is for the birth keepers who want to grow and change. We are open to learning through self-reflection and supportive community. We are creating this space to explore without judgment. We are remembering we were
Born wild.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Born Wild podcast. This is your host, Lea
and Sophia. And today we have with us Stephanie Webb. I know Stephanie because I got to watch her have both her babies at home when I was a student midwife. And then we reconnected to have swim lessons. And I've had so many parents be interested in this specific type of swim lesson. And so I thought it would be awesome to have her on and talk about it a little bit. So let me tell you a little bit about Stephanie. Stephanie became aware of the ISR program after having almost lost her 3-year-old daughter in a non-fatal drowning accident in her parents' pool. Up until that time, her daughter had taken 8 months of private and semi-private lessons at the local community center. After her daughter's accident, Stephanie realized she had learned no actual safety skills or swimming techniques. Her daughter learned that water could be fun, but not that it could be dangerous. Play-based swim lessons only gave her a false sense of security in the water. 3 months later, Stephanie enrolled her in the ISR program along with her 1.5-year-old baby brother. She was worried about her daughter experiencing trauma getting back in the water so soon after her accident, but after a couple weeks of tears, which I can attest to for my children, and a bit of resistance, her daughter started enjoying the water again as she learned how to float and swim independently. Her young son also learned how to independently find his float and maintain that float by the end of the session. It was an incredibly emotional process for the family, but so rewarding seeing her children master these incredible skills. Stephanie wanted to make sure no parent ever had to reckon with a life or death drowning situation again in her community. So she became a certified ISR instructor in 2020. Her favorite part of lessons is when parents get to swim with their children at the end of the session. It all comes together for each family, and the children are so excited to show off their skills to their parents. Oh, and I actually had no idea that you had that experience when we started this.
Yeah, it was a big eye-opener. That's for sure. Unfortunately, my story is not uncommon. I've worked with a number of families who have children who have non-fatal drowning accidents or something similar where they're just in the water and their kid fell in and they just happened to notice within a couple seconds, but it scared the daylights out of them. So
I have a friend who is terrified about water for her children because her friend's child drowned and died. And so she didn't have a trauma, but she's like, oh. And so I've been talking to her about this type of lesson. She's really interested and so scared, at the idea of it. Can you talk a little bit about what the program is for people who are like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, definitely. And for your friend, like I understand because I have a phobia of drowning. Even before my daughter's accident, I can't watch it on TV. I have to leave the room. So I 100% understand the anxiety she goes through. And so ISR ultimately is a program designed to teach children 6 months through 6 years how to self-rescue if they find themselves in the water by themselves. Our float is really the basis for our program. It's the main priority for a 6-month-old or a 6-year-old. Usually 6 months through a year, we will teach a child how to hold their breath underwater and then find their float and maintain their float until help arrives. Somewhere around 18 months, depending on the developmental readiness of the child, up through 6 years, we will teach them a little 3-4 second swim, how to find their float, and then depending on the child, flipping over to resume swimming and kind of continuing that swim, float, swim pattern until they reach the wall, the steps, or if they're just playing in the water with their parent, how to reach their parent. And like I said, the main priority is the float. So, sometimes we have a 4-year-old who is absolutely terrified of the water. Maybe they had an accident. So maybe we'll just work super slow and just teach them the float that first session. So it really depends on where a child is. And our lessons are one-on-one. So we're able to customize and move as quickly or as slowly as we need to with each child. And lessons are structured a little bit differently than conventional swim lessons. We're 5 days a week for 10 minutes a day, versus maybe at the YMCA or community center, you do 1 or 2 30-minute sessions a week. Ours is built to kind of reinforce habitual learning and habit building.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So because I remember being like, oh, wow, it's like an everyday commitment and it's only 10 minutes. How much are they going to get out of 10 minutes, and don't be late, because if you're 5 minutes late, you like miss half the class.
Yeah. Commitment to the program. It's a commitment, 100%. Mm-hmm. But the reason why our lessons are 10 minutes is, first of all, especially for young children, a 30-minute lesson is a super long time to be in the water. They get really cold. Their attention spans tap out at around 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. And they're not going to be learning anything after those 10 minutes. In fact, they'll just be cold. And if a child is physically cold, they're going to become physically fatigued, which we never want to happen in ISR lessons. And so, yes, we work on essentially 1 skill a day. So maybe we're working on kicking one day, and then maybe it takes 2 or 3 days of working on that kick. But by breaking it down into 10 minutes a day, we're building muscle memory, essentially. It's like learning an instrument. If you practice 10 minutes a day for 5 days a week versus 1 hour lesson a week, you're going to get that muscle memory and learn it a little bit more. And especially for young children, where they really base a lot of their learning off of sensory motor learning. So navigating and touching and feeling their environment, versus an adult or an older child, that habitual repetition just keeps muscle memory fresh. So, yeah. But it's a commitment, and 100% is a commitment. I've been through the program a number of times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And ISR stands for Infant Swim Rescue?
Infant Swimming Resource.
Swimming Resource. Okay.
Yeah. Resource.
Okay. So yeah. And there is a myth floating around. There's a rumor floating around that, is that program where they just throw your kid in and you've heard it, yeah. I'm sure. They just throw the kid in and they have to like figure it out, kind of thing.
Unfortunately, with a lot of those videos, a lot of the instructors that you see are not ISR certified. There are lots of other competing survival swim programs, but ours have been around for over 50 years. The statistics is a little out of date, but as of a few years ago, we had delivered over 8 million safe lessons to children in the United States and in Puerto Rico and some other countries. And the myth of ISR being traumatic, I can 100% understand why parents would see that. If they see that on social media, instructor just chucking the child in the water, kids coughing and sputtering coming up, that 100% can cause trauma. But we don't operate our program like that. We have a lot of safety protocols that we follow during lessons. Every day before your child even comes into the pool, we do a BUDS review. So it's bowel, urine, diet, and sleep. And it allows us to see where your child is at every day. Maybe they've had a couple of nights of really poor sleep and we're seeing, maybe there's a cold coming on, or maybe they've been constipated, or maybe they had a vaccination a couple of days ago and they're not feeling 100%. So maybe the safest lesson that day is no lesson. And so we really try to interview the parent and the child so we can see how they're doing on a day-to-day basis. And for people thinking that we just chuck your child in the water, we have something called the 7-second rule. So American Academy of Pediatrics says that cessation of breathing happens at 21 seconds with no respiration. We will never, out of the water or under the water, have your child go without an effective respiration for more than 7 seconds. So let's say baby's under the water for 3 seconds, they roll on their back, but it takes them 4, 5, 6 seconds to get a breath. That's too long. So they weren't under the water for 7 seconds, but their timing between the respirations is too long. So maybe we have to move back, say, okay, well, what happened when we put baby under the water? Was it too complicated? Was I in the way? Were they looking at something? there's a whole bunch of different things that we look at when we have something like that happen. Also, we are checking them for physical fatigue, and we do that by checking their vasoconstriction. So how much time it takes for blood to kind of refill the surface. So on the bottom of their feet, we'll touch their heel and press it, and we'll time how long it takes for that color to come back. And by monitoring that, we're making sure your child is not getting too cold, because it will be a precursor to physical fatigue. And then once they're tired, they're not going to learn anything. So we never want a child to be physically fatigued after lessons. And the first thing we do when a child comes in the water, especially in the first week, we make sure they have proper breath control. They can hold their breath. We will never submerge your child if they cannot properly hold their breath, mouth closed, especially, or for babies, sometimes plugging their mouth with their tongue so they don't close their mouth all the way, especially for kids who have pacifiers. And then our program is a little different too, because we have a couple departments for children who have special medical needs, or maybe they're on the spectrum. We have a team of specialists that will follow your child to make sure that they are safe in the water and that they're progressing, and that what they're showing us in the water is healthy and normal. And then for children who are healthy or don't have any spectrum disorders, we have a separate team that we can ask questions if as an instructor, we're a little stuck. So it's nice to have that feedback, and maybe having someone else look at a video and say, oh, I'm seeing this, what's going on in the water. Why don't you try that for tomorrow's lesson? So we have a lot of support as instructors, and then also support for parents as well. And all of our instructors have to undergo recertification every year. We have to submit videos of us teaching to make sure we're teaching properly, everyone's safe. They're looking at our safety protocols while we're doing our lessons. So yeah, there's a lot of different things that our swim program does that is not shown on those videos where they just toss your kids in.
Yeah. And I got to do some of that with you for Benji, where he would be recorded and be evaluated because of his lungs and heart.
Yeah, but he did super well. So
it took him a little extra long to get his float. I don't know if it's because his lungs are so tiny.
Yeah, and sometimes leaner kids sometimes need a little bit of extra work. They don't have that buoyancy.
Yeah. He was never scared though. Gracie, on the other hand, was scared. Like, I remember when we went to our first class, I'm like, okay, we've got it all planned out. Ben's gonna go first because he's super brave. She's gonna see how much fun he's having, and she's gonna be golden. And we got there, and this kid was like losing their absolute mind, and Gracie's eyes got all big. I was like, oh, we should have been first of the day. But it was so great because we got to see that child every time, because they were always right before us. And so we also got to see her progress as well. And like, we would talk about it, like, oh, she was scared too, and look at how good she's doing now, But I remember the day it switched for Gracie was I had been talking to her about, like, Stephanie is never going to let anything happen to you. And she was saying, like, to you, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. And then she was like, wait, I have a question for you. Or I want to tell you something. And she was like, you would never let anything happen to me. And you're like, I would never let anything happen to you. And she's like, okay. And then from then on, she just like had a blast. She just needed to like clarify.
And the crying is super normal for the first couple weeks.
It's so hard to watch. It's so hard to watch. Yeah.
It is. And I like to try to remind parents that kids cry for a whole bunch of different reasons. With COVID, there's definitely been an uptick in crying, just because most kids around this age have not had that social interaction that they would normally have. So they're with their parents a lot more. And for a lot of kids, I'm the first person that they're doing an activity with without mom right there. You know what I mean? And so I'm a stranger for the first couple weeks. They don't know me, and I'm asking them to do challenging things. And why is this lady asking me to go grab this bar? Why is this lady putting water on my ears? They don't have a relationship with me yet. And so being in a new environment and not having mom right there with us can be challenging. But kids try for stressful reasons. If they're hungry, if they're sad, if they're angry. A lot of kids, especially if they're older, sometimes have control issues and do not like relinquishing control. That was my son when he went through when he was a little older. And also I've had this with some parents, and myself included, when I went through ISR after my daughter's accident. I project my fear and my kids can internalize that. You know, if I talk to my children and say, you're doing so good. I know lessons are so scary, but you are so brave. That's going to tell them that I have something to be worried about. You know, I have something that there's something is dangerous about what mom is making me do every day, that there's something that I need to cry about and be upset about. And so part of the program is also helping parents talk to their children about water safety. So focusing on, those were great kicks. Oh my goodness, look how long that swim was. You splashed Miss Stephanie with those kicks, all those kind of things, kind of turning the conversation around to focus on their achievements rather than their fears. So that's how we like to try and encourage parents as well. And so,
and I remember, my kids were a little bit older, so I could say these kinds of words with them, but I compared it to like having a seatbelt in the car, you know, it's not really optional, like this class, because a lot of the things we do with them, like, sure, if you try ballet for a little bit and you're not into it, we'll just stop. But this was something where we're like, no, this is about safety and this is something you have to learn how to do. You know, it's not optional.
Yeah. And that's a great mindset to go into it, because a lot of parents, they go into lessons because they want their kids to feel comfortable and have fun in the water. That's what I did. My daughter, when she took lessons at the community center, she was terrified of getting water in her face. She hated it. But the lessons that she took there taught her how to blow her air out right when she got in the water, which that instinct to breathe now is really strong since you've let all your air out. So that was a competing thing that then she had to learn when she went into ISR, because her reflex was to exhale all her water the second she got under the water. And she used a lot of flotation devices, so she never got to feel what her body felt like in the water. We don't use flotation devices. We let the child practice problem solving and understanding the water, so that way they can interpret that sensory experience and learn how to correct themselves if necessary. And of course, we're there making sure that they're breathing correctly, and we're looking for proper body posture, maybe with your head or the arms. So we're looking at different things and focusing on one thing a day, so that way we're not overwhelming them. So
I know your kids are probably swimming. They're older.
Yes.
But I do know, I think you had a client's child drown.
Yeah, I was just thinking too while you were talking. I've had a few I think almost everyone unfortunately has some story from their life. Someone they've known or whatever. But yeah, I did have a client who their baby found its way into the pool. Just under 1. Which is obviously, and then I've also had friends, one lost a sibling who was like 13 when he died. But what I was just thinking when you were talking is that, I think our fear as parents is that they're going to fall in the deep end and they can't swim and they need swim lessons, but that so many drownings actually that I hear about are in shallower water. It makes total sense that teaching a child, just how to feel their own body in the water and like how easy it would be to turn their head. But you know, and just like float and all of those things that, it's.
And I think you were saying when they rely on the flotation devices, it keeps them in an upright position, which is great because it keeps their head above water, but it's impossible to float in that position. If they're so used to that, they'll never think of going backwards, you know?
Yeah, for children, especially for children under 4, their upper body and their head are so disproportionately heavy and large compared to their lower body that maintaining a vertical posture, which is the drowning posture, is incredibly difficult. It's hard to keep that buoyancy because you're going to keep bobbing up and down, and it's not going to teach them where to reliably find air, which is why we teach them the float, is because the float, they have so much surface area helping them balance themselves in the water. It's much easier to maintain it and make corrections if a wave comes over, or if they exhale a little too much and they sink, they can correct themselves and pop right back up. And so for children, it's really hard. It takes a lot of energy to tread water. And then their physical anatomy just makes it challenging. Their short arms, heavy heads, little necks. Like it's just
sound like a T-Rex or something. Little T-Rex learning how to swim.
Essentially. But we also tell parents, if you're looking at a swim program, no child is drown proof. If they're going to tell you that we can make sure your child is 100% safe and they're never going to succumb to a drowning. That's not going to happen. Most children, over 80%, drown when they're fully clothed, and they also were not allowed to be swimming. So a common scenario is baby's down for his nap, mom's doing chores, baby crawls out through doggy door and goes to the pond, the culvert, the creek, the pool, grandma's pool that didn't get locked. And those things happen so often that, that's kind of what happened to us. I was because I had a phobia of drowning. I made sure I did everything I was supposed to do. Gates, really quick self latches, but my mom had snaked a hose through the pool door gate because my daughter was spraying my dad and my husband, who were in the water playing. Mm-hmm. And then it got left there and it looked like the gate was closed to me. So, you try to do all these things, but, every person that I've run into who has lost a child or who has had a child who had a drowning accident, always say it never happens to them. We have quite a few ISR instructors who have lost their children to drowning, or they have survived with injuries. And they all say they would have rathered, enrolled their child in the program and have them be upset. If they were one of those kids that cry for 6 weeks, it happens. Most kids do not. But they would have rathered having them cry for that time and still be healthy and happy, and sometimes just here in general, versus not having those skills to self-rescue. And like I said, ISR does not guarantee drown-proofing your child. We're just one of the layers of protection. And that's what at the end of the session, that's what we talk about with parents. There can be interference for so many different reasons why a child cannot self-rescue. Water is too cold that they fall into, that shock that happens when water's too cold and your lungs kind of seize and spasm. There can be toys in the water that make it hard to surface. Some kids just never know how they react in an emergency. So we try to, at the end of the session, really reiterate the layers of protection that need to be happening. But that's also why we do the clothing lessons, because at the end of the lesson, once they have shown that they can perform all of these skills in a bathing suit, we do it in summer clothing and winter clothing, shoes, with a regular diaper. And so it gives them that sensory experience, so they never experience falling in the water by themselves. We want them to at least have practiced it in a safe environment where I can help correct if we need to and just gradually move into it, versus falling in your winter jacket with some sandals on or something like that. So, and it's really, parents always get super excited for clothing lessons. Sometimes it takes 1 or 2 tries, but we never think of it as a test. It's an opportunity to practice the skills. And if they need a little bit more help, that's great, because that's going to show me this is where they're getting stuck. Maybe we need to go back and practice a couple more days with that skill, and then we try again. So
yeah, it was great. I remember Gracie having to move her jacket hoodie or something, you know, if she would come up and the hood was there, and have to swim in these big bulky boots, you know. And but yeah, I shared her before and after video on Facebook, because the first couple weeks was really emotional for her, and she's very emotional in general. And so I shared the first video, and I was like, warning, this is gonna be really hard to watch, but I saved it. I didn't want to share it right away because I wanted to have a happy ending video.
Yeah, I understand.
After. And the very last video, she's leaping into the water and floating on her back and rolling over and swimming to you. And she's like, can I do it again? And and I actually loved the ones where you would have them sit at the edge of the pool backwards and kind of somersault them backwards in the water to experience, because probably when they fall in, a lot of times they're not pencil dropping in, but they're tumbling and somersaulting and how do I find up?
Get pushed in an accident by a friend or something.
Yeah, so finding where up is and getting up.
Yeah, definitely. And like I said, we'll never just expect them to figure that out the first time. We're always practicing really small little turns, and we just build from there, just more gradual.
And ages 6 months to 6 years.
Yeah, 6 months to 6 years. 6 months, the child has to be able to sit unassisted for 2 minutes. And that's just to make sure they have the proper abdominal, musculature to maintain a float, and also just to rotate their body in the water. But yeah, 6-month-old, they do really well. Honestly, the younger they are, most of the time, the easier that they are, because they don't have a whole bunch of reinforcement history with puddle jumpers and life jackets and not getting their face wet. You know, some parents do not get faces wet until 4 or 5 years old in bath time. And that can be challenging.
Yeah. What happens after 6 years old?
After 6 years old, usually coordination is developed enough where they can start doing strokes lessons. I don't teach strokes. Some ISR instructors do. But before 6 years old, because of like the weight of the head and upper body, a lot of times when kids start to use strokes, their head will pop up, which starts to put them vertical. So we always ask for them to wait until around 6, 7 years old to go into a more formal strokes program. Okay. And we have recommendations for things like that. But also, if families want to continue doing ISR and don't want to put their kids in a strokes program, you know, we'll keep working with them. We have after they finish a regular session, which is about 6 to 8 weeks, we have something called a refresher session and a maintenance session. Refreshers are usually happen about 5, 6 months after a regular session. So if a child hasn't swam in a long time, like over the winter, and we want to introduce them and kind of refresh those skills that we have already learned, it's an opportunity for me to correct things that need to be corrected. Maybe parents or grandparents had put them in a puddle jumper a couple times over the 6 months I hadn't seen them. And so maybe we need to do a little bit of correction. They're not going to learn anything new, but we can maintain. And then that moves to maintenance lessons where maybe they're once a week, once every 2 weeks in the summertime. So that way skills are actively being practiced. So that way they're not forgetting everything. And if they do ever have an emergency, at least they practice it and it's at the front of their mind and muscle memory has been refreshed. So.
Oh, that's great to know about the maintenance. I wasn't sure like the difference between them because we've done the refresher like at the end of spring. I'm like, okay, let's do this, like refresh our memory for summertime. But that's great to know about you said it's weekly usually.
Yeah, depends on the family. If families are swimming really often, sometimes I recommend once a week just so it's being practiced. But if you're not going to be in the water that often, you know, you can come in once every 2 weeks. So weekly is best to kind of keep the skills going.
Yeah. Cool. And it's nice. It's not like a huge commitment, you know, it's still 10 minutes, all of them?
10 minutes. Everything is 10 minutes. Yeah, definitely.
So much sense just as far as like kids learning and being able to really keep something when beyond a certain point, you know.
Yeah. And I have a lot of parents.
A little more than 10 minutes, but no.
It doesn't seem like you would learn enough in 10 minutes, but it definitely is. I have parents at the end of every session tell me, I don't know how we got here. Like the first week they couldn't hold their breath and now they're doing a little 4-second swim and they're floating and they're like, it was so short in the scheme of things, but also, you know, I can attest to having taken conventional swim lessons with my daughter, private and semi-private. So about an hour a week, you know, 2 30-minute lessons. But she didn't come away with anything. And I spent however many hundreds of dollars on the program through that. So really, when you look at it in terms of your time and commitment, it's pretty comparable. Like we're kind of condensing everything to a really short time span, but they're at least getting something out of it by the end of the session. But that's not to say it's not a commitment, because it is. I have parents bring their kids, grandparents, nannies, au pairs, friends, aunts and uncles. I have people are able to make it work for the most part. And you know, we're willing to work with anyone who's willing to take the kiddos. So
yeah. And you're located in Santa Rosa. How, if people are listening and not nearby, how does somebody find an instructor?
If you go to ISR's website, infantswim.com, there's an instructor locator, and you can type in your zip code and it'll pop up the instructors in your 5 miles, 10 miles, whatever your search engine or your search is. If you're not able to find an instructor, people are also able to email me as well, because sometimes instructors don't pop up on the locator. Sometimes we have instructors traveling, doing special sessions at certain cities. And so they may not pop up on the locator, but I can ask the instructor saying, hey, is anyone teaching in Salt Lake City in the next couple months? Sometimes there is. And so I can connect them with that instructor. So
I thought you were going to say, if you can't find an instructor, then become one.
Oh, that too, 100%.
If there's no one in your area, then just become one.
Yeah, it's super rewarding. I love working with kids, and it's nice being outside. And I love the end of the sessions where parents come in and they get to swim. They've been seeing it from the sidelines, and being able to have their kids. Honestly, their kids will swim completely differently than they will with me. And so it's good for me to see too. Are they going to honor that little 3 or 4 second swim when they're swimming with mom and dad? Or are they going to try to push it for 7 or 8 seconds? And if they're trying to do that, then I can talk to parents saying, hey, this is what you need to do to kind of help maintain our good swim, float, swim sequence. That way nothing is kind of getting out of balance, because kids will be more playful. They'll be sillier with parents. We'll do dive toys. If a child is older and likes to do dive toys, practicing doing jumps off the side. So we like to see kind of a real world swim experience.
I remember that because our nanny would take the kids sometimes, and I would watch back the videos, and Ben was like, a perfect specimen. And then I would take him and he'd be like, Mom, what's this? And we were like, oh my gosh. He's just totally goofing off the whole time. You'd have to like bring him back down to focus. Yeah.
Yeah, he's super playful. He was fun. Both of your kiddos are fun to work with.
Cool. Great. Well, was there anything else we didn't touch on that you think is really important to talk about listening?
Whether it's with me or a different instructor, if you have questions, your instructor is always going to be willing to chat with you about your concerns. Most parents have some sort of concern going into lessons. And your child is only going to be as successful as you allow them to be. So if you're supportive of the program, and you understand how to approach the program, talking with them and then swimming with them, you're going to give your child the best chance of success for maintaining their skills. And your instructor should be with you before your lessons. If you have a concern, please talk to your instructor. If you have questions about your kid, maybe they went to grandma's house and now they're swimming vertical. They seem to have lost their swim. You don't know what happened, tell your instructor, and they're going to get you in as quickly as they can to get it fixed. So instructors are here for you every step of the way for whatever questions you guys have. Use us. We're a resource. And after your child has kind of phased out of the ISR program, we usually can tell you somewhere to go afterwards to maintain everything.
Great.
So
and if people are trying to get a hold of you specifically, are you on social media? Do you have any contact info?
My website is Santa Rosa ISR. It's the same handle for Instagram and Facebook. You can see my Facebook page. Don't post a ton, so my website or my email is the best place to get a hold of me. But I do answer through there. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, because we, like Lea was saying, everybody knows someone. Everyone has a story. My grandpa's brother died. He drowned when he was 6 or something, and he probably maybe couldn't have been helped. He fell through ice in Michigan. So like you were talking about, there's certain situations, but it's such a great resource. And for parents listening, you don't have to be as scared as you probably are about it.
Yeah, definitely. We're going to take really good care of your child, and a lesson will never be associated with a struggle for air. Your child is never going to struggle in the water. That's a big thing for us.
I mean, I just can't imagine it's scarier than the thought of your child. What to do if they fell in the water. So I wish I had known about it when my girls were younger.
You only do what you can do, right?
Totally. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Great. Well, thank you for coming on, sharing your story.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Hey, take care, guys.
All right, bye.
Thanks everybody for listening. You can find us at Born Wild Podcast on Instagram. For inquiries or feedback, you can email us at bornwildpodcast@gmail.com. You can find me, Emma Ray, on Instagram at Emma Ray, REA.
Sophia at sophiabirth.com.
And me, Lea, at Bay Area Home Birth.
We would really appreciate it if you would rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. It helps us reach more people. And as always,
Stay wild.